Eighth graders, how you doing? Mr. Berardo again. Haven't seen you in a while. Haven't heard from any of you, some of you in a while. And it's kind of scary, especially when you look and see, oh my goodness. Some of you don't realize that your assignments are time-stamped, so I can tell when they're handed in, and you come at me really hard and say, why didn't you do this? Because that's what you're doing. And I kind of just giggled and say, this is not the way it's supposed to be, right? Anyway, we're getting into talking about what the United States getting involved in the war. We are really not prepared to fight World War II. We have done some stuff. We had a draft immediately before Pearl Harbor was about 6 or 7 months, or about a year before World War II started for us, before Pearl Harbor was bombed. We really didn't have a lot of supplies. We really didn't have a lot of tanks. We knew something was coming, and we knew we should prepare for something. We just were kind of hoping it wouldn't have to happen, but we did have to start building some stuff. That got pushed forward really, really fast. Once Pearl Harbor was bombed, we were going to have to start to tighten our belts and go from this economy that was really just kind of struggling to stay afloat and get going and getting out of the Depression to really spending on, like, in one of the videos I showed you, it said we were spending into like the hundreds of thousands of, maybe a couple $1 million into the hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars for our economy. One of the first groups that really gets credit for doing a lot of stuff in the war was a group of, your atypical woman at the time called Rosie the Riveter. She wasn't a specific person, she was based on a specific person, but that term became used for all women that are going to go to the workplace. They're going to go into the workforce building anything. Everything, whatever you can name, they really did it. Why? Well, because most of the men were being drafted or were actually signing up to go fight in World War II now. So women stepped up and we had to build stuff, and that's what they did. So when the men go off and start to fight the war, the women are going to do it. These women right here are all building ships in a naval yard. They will build planes, they will build guns, they will build ammunition, they will build tanks, they will build jeeps, they will build anything you could think of. They will get involved, and that's what they're going to do. So women are going to play a huge role in the workforce during the Second World War, okay? So we're going to change the way we do things. We're going to go from a peacetime economy to a wartime economy. It means we were going to start to produce, during a peacetime economy, we produce things that we want to have for our personal consumption. If it doesn't work, well, that product goes away. In a wartime economy, there's specific things we have to build. We have to build. Now, obviously, you would think in a wartime economy, you're going to have to build guns. You're going to have to build rifles. You're going to have to build grenades. You're going to have to build, you have to make gunpowder. It's made. It's not just naturally occurring. You have to make gunpowder. So we are going to take all of that effort into making the radios and the cars and whatever else we use to really making stuff for the military. You're kind of seeing that right now. Where we stopped, and hopefully you pay attention to the news, and they talk about this coronavirus all the time, but we have taken over, the military is essentially, we federalized a lot of companies, and they went from making cars to now they're making ventilators, and they went from making clothes to now they're making the PPEs, and they went from certain industries just started change everything that they did, now they're making masks and other stuff. It's kind of very similar to what happened during World War II, except on World War II, a much, much, much larger scale. And I hate to say it like this, but we weren't fighting a virus. We were fighting for the very existence of our way of life. And that was going to be a driving force to see how things were going to happen. We're going to have to learn how to ration things, which again, very eerily similar to what's going on now. If you look at what's going on with the toilet paper in the supermarket, if you can get out there, people aren't rationing toilet paper. They're just buying it all up. Well, you would get these books, these different ration books, and it would basically say what you were entitled to buy. You would get a coupon, essentially what it would look like to be a coupon, and you would turn that in and say, we're good for 1 roll of toilet paper, and you could hand in that coupon and get a roll of toilet paper. Sugar, salt, butter, meats, all sorts of things like that. We're going to ration things dramatically. If you didn't have that piece of paper saying you could buy it, you couldn't buy it. And that's just the way it was. So, like I said, items such as sugar, oil, flour, coffee, rubber, meat, gasoline, all of these things are needed to help the war effort. Sugar, flour, coffee, meat, those are all going to go into rations for our soldiers. They're going to be used specifically to feed our soldiers. And like I said, We're going to go from peacetime military of around 140,000 people, 104, about 140,000 people, soldiers, or 200, somewhere in that range of 200,000, to upwards of 4 million, literally overnight. So we're going to have to feed them. We're going to have to make sure that they're eating, and we have to make sure that they're going to be trained well and fed well so they are ready to fight. The rubber and the gasoline, hopefully you can understand that rubber is going to be used for tires. Rubber is going to be used for, to coat wiring. It's going to be used for planes. It's going to be used for all sorts of stuff. And the gasoline is going to use, it's the go-go juice. It helps things go. And without gasoline and oil, those things are, tanks. Wow, it's great. We can just park them there, and hopefully somebody comes by and we can shoot at them. They need to be on the move, and they really need to go out. American propaganda right here saying, it's a bag of sugar, it's a thing of sugar, and they're stretching it out saying, you got to make do with what you have. All sorts of these new recipes going to come out where, people are just, do all sorts of different things to try and make what they have last as long as they possibly can. You're going to have all sorts of different things happening. People are going to be planting victory gardens. It could be one of the reasons why your family likes to garden now, because of World War II. They were kind of forced. If they wanted fresh produce, they kind of had to go out and grow some of their own. So they planted victory gardens. They went out and planted all sorts of different things, and they jarred them and they pickled them and all sorts of things like that, so they could use them at a later date. But this stuff wasn't available in stores. We don't realize how lucky we have it. We could go to a store and just go out and buy it. During World War II, all that stuff just disappeared and went right to the military. You're going to see things like meatless days, like meatless Wednesdays, meatless Fridays, where they're going to urge you not to eat meat on those days, so that they have more meat for the military. Let's see, scrap drives. Some of you guys we watched It's a Wonderful Life, and they talked about scrap drives and rubber drives. This is the time period we're talking. One class did, one class didn't. You know why. But they're going to be doing scrap drives where scrap metal comes about. They're going to take all this metal, all these people just bringing all this old stuff from their house that they don't use anymore, scrap wood, scrap metal, and they're going to just give it to the government in a sense to build new stuff. They're going to melt down the metal, they'll make new things. They can make bullets out of it. They're going to make all sorts of different, they'll make different things out of it. I'm going to try and show you guys a couple videos where the home front really kind of kicks in, and it's going to at least give you an idea of what we're talking about. If I can find it, I really have to look for it. But this is going to be a rubber drive. So all these things, like I said, this guy's got old rubber tires. They can melt them down, so to speak, and they'll repurpose them. They'll cut them up, and they'll use it for different things. I just want to go right there and start. And Monday we'll get into more of the actual fighting for the Second World War for the United States, because in the beginning things are not that great for us. All right. I want to show you how we reacted immediately after Pearl Harbor was bombed. And this stuff, these drives, they're going to last from 1941 until about 1945, okay? Until we can really get our act together, we can really get all our supplies that we need. Part of our strategy for victory is we're going to outproduce. We may not make the best equipment, because we don't, but we make a lot more of it, and we do, okay? So on Monday, we'll get into more or less talking about the United States in the Second World War. I'm going to give you questions, and I'm going to hopefully find a few videos to show you about the Second World War and what we do on the home front to make sure that everything is okay and that our military men are taken care of. Make sure you're doing your work. Make sure you're doing it on time. Don't come at me saying that you didn't do this, Mr. Berardo, because I am pretty much on top of it. I may not put your grades in right away, but I do grade them in my grade book, and that's just the way it is. So I know when you're not doing your work. Like I said, answer your questions. If you're having a hard time with the Word document, you gotta, before you open the attachment, hit the 3 dots, and it'll say Open in Word. That's where you open. That's where you type, and that should help you out. Really aren't too many of you that are having an issue. It's the same 4 or 5 people, and those 4 or 5 people, you know who you are. Just contact me, and we try and work it out the best we possibly can. Other than that, attach it to my assignment, and then we'll get done with that. I will see you guys on Monday talking about the actual battles of World War II, or starting to get at least some of them for World War II. Bye.